right. I need to see the mug.
Okay.
What mug do we have today?
It's a very special mug for a very special occasion.
Oh my god, it's a Star Wars mug! Oh my god, wait, where did you get that?
Star Wars mug.
I'm jealous. So, listeners, it's like today Amanda's mug is like tea mug is like it looks like a comic book style, little panels. There's Yoda. Chewbacca looks very angry. You see Luke in his X-Wing.
Yeah.
And some stormtroopers. Where did you get this? I'm so jealous.
This was a couple, maybe 5-7 years ago. It was a Valentine's Day present to myself.
Nice. Well, that's love, right? That's
it came with like chocolate in there
that
and
is
stuff, but I just wanted the mug.
It came with chocolate?
It wasn't good chocolate, but I just wanted the mug.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. But I figured it's like the inaugural talkening.
It is the talkening. That's what people usually call a podcast, as a talkening.
The inaugural talkening. The second talkening, I suppose.
Return of the talkening.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I'm jealous. Amanda actually had to stop me from purchasing some very overpriced mugs on eBay the other day.
Oh no, go ahead and tell them how much
Star Wars Celebration. They were mugs from Star Wars Celebration. I saw one on Twitter. I think that's how this originated, right? And somebody was showing off their mugs, and there's one from Endor, and there was one from, I don't know.
It almost looks like tourism stuff, like visit Endor.
Yeah, and they're
like,
super
you know how like
cute.
Starbucks has like, you've been to Atlanta, here's an Atlanta mug.
I know, and
it was like Endor, Tatooine,
cute, and I think they were from Star Wars Celebration. They were like past Star Wars Celebration merch, and I was on eBay, and I was like ready to hit the button, and Amanda was like, "Hold up. That mug is like $130." And I was like, but it's so cute.
It was too much. I couldn't let you do it.
But we have a podcast. It's for work. A podcast where we drink tea.
You just write it off.
You just write it off.
Yep.
Exactly. Welcome to Tea and Tauntauns, a Star Wars podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nicole.
I'm Amanda, your other host.
And today we're actually talking about a movie.
Yeah.
We're talking about the movie that started it all. 1977 used to be just Star Wars. Now we call it A New Hope.
I got some high quality nerd shit for you today.
I am so fucking excited. So listeners, bear with us as we work through our format here. But so I feel like, first, before we get into the discussion, I did have a couple of things I wanted to update the listeners about, some stuff that our mother uncovered from the basement. So let's just do that first.
I think first of all, let's give a shout out to our mom for not only saving all of this delightful memorabilia, but listening to our podcast.
Thank you, Mom. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mom, for listening to our podcast and then digging all the shit out of your basement. Although I think she was happy to unload it, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
So I have it all over here. So first of all, you were very busy this weekend cooking the Father's Day brunch. So you were like, I can't look at this right now.
I was elbow deep in pancakes, and so I couldn't really have any input on this when it came.
They were good pancakes. So I just wanted to. So one of the things she got, didn't remember this at all. 4 super bounce balls. I'm not going to open this. These are party favors from Star Wars Episode 1. I'm going to try to hold it up to the camera so you can see.
I see my beloved is on there.
Obi Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan.
Darth Maul. Jar Jar Binks and Qui-Gon Jinn.
I'll let you just imagine which one my beloved is.
Super balls. 4 super balls. You could juggle them. These balls.
I was just thinking, like, why would you buy something like that? And then I was like, you know what? My kids would love that.
I'm not going to open them.
Well, no, but
I'm just going to enjoy them.
You're going to need a new shelf.
I know I am for all this stuff. I also, off screen, I'm not going to get it out right now. I have the Ewok Village, the original 1983 Ewok Village that we used to play with our Star Wars figures.
I did find the little seat that Mom was obsessing about.
Okay.
Yes, I sure did.
Can I have that? Maybe I'll show it on the show next time.
No. Do it on Jedi. Obviously.
Oh yeah, let's wait for Jedi.
Obviously.
That's great call. Couple other things that Mom brought over. Some Jar Jar and a Yoda.
I believe these were part of the Taco Bell series.
Shit. I didn't realize this until just now.
It's a magic 8-ball.
This isn't any Yoda. It's a magic 8-ball Yoda. holy shit. I don't even know what it's saying that.
Well, wait. Shake it and ask a question first.
Okay. Shit. You give me a question. What should I ask Yoda?
Oh God, I don't know.
Yoda.
Will there be a Star Wars 10?
Will there be a Star Wars 10? Will we get more of the current saga? Great question. Let's see. I can't fucking see this. I need.
Oh God, I was gonna say that's a real weird thing for Yoda to say.
I fucking see this. I can't. Okay, the words are too tiny.
So that's not good news.
Results inconclusive. I put glasses on. I literally can't see what the
inconclusive it is.
I think what happened is over time the liquid has gotten lower, and now the fucking thing with the message on it is too far away from the window.
Turn it, yeah, like that.
Okay. And now I see nothing but liquid. Okay. We're gonna work on this. Results inconclusive.
Inconclusive. Well, that's about all we know anyway.
Yeah. So, sorry, listeners, if you were hoping for some kind of answer there. And then I also have one of the Trade Federation guys on his weird little chair.
Is he a wind-up toy, though? Yep.
He is a wind-up toy.
I have this whole Taco Bell set upstairs.
So, yeah, he's a wind-up toy. You can hear the... Anyway, wow. This is... just a bounty of toys. And then last but not least,
as promised,
the cups. So the majestic bust cups. We've got a Yoda, and again, this Federation guy, can't remember his name at the moment. I'm sorry, everyone, but the Trade Federation guy. We got those guys, and my mom says so. These are from a Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell combo restaurant. I get, or maybe you could just get them at either one. But
I mean, you have to recognize how much how much Mom wanted those toys that we actually went to like Taco Bell to get them.
Hey man, those cinnamon twists are good. I eat those cinnamon twists all day long. I don't know if you've had one recently.
It's been a while.
It's good. So yeah, now my office has even more Star Wars merch. I'm gonna have to get new shelves, and we now have the cups that we were talking about from the last show in our possession. So I'll put maybe some pictures of that on the Instagram stories too.
Picture of Darth Maul window sticky. To be TBD.
Yeah, Amanda's gonna go.
I'm gonna go dig around next week and see if I can find them.
I feel like we've had at least one holiday dinner in that dining room with Darth Maul like in the background.
Absolutely,
probably
100%. And like graduations and stuff.
Oh yeah,
graduation parties and stuff.
Yes,
yeah, he's there.
Yes,
he was there for a long time.
He was there for all the special moments. So thanks, Mom, for bringing that stuff by, and so that's I'm pretty fucking excited about. I'm excited about this Ewok Village, but we'll wait. We'll unveil that when we watch Jedi. Okay, so before we get into actually talking about the movie, I feel like we're not gonna like summarize the plot. That's not something we're going to do here. Doesn't need to be done. I feel like that would be a waste of time. So I've got some bullet points of things that I do want to talk about, and you've got some research that you've done. So should we go back and forth? One like you, me, or how do you want to do this?
Let's just get started and see how it goes.
All right.
You kick it off.
Well, did you want to tell us a little bit about your research process? Because I remember you wanted to that was something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Well, basically, there's a number of planets that we see throughout the Star Wars universe, including, the TV series.
Yes.
And there's some information we've gotten about the Star Wars universe from these other sort of canon sources. Like people are really interested in taking segments of dialogue from instance, like there's an episode of The Mandalorian where Grogu's in school basically, where he's like eating all those kids' cookies.
Yes!
And in the background,
he's eating,
the teachers
macaroons or some shit.
Right. In the background, the teacher's basically giving them like a geopolitics lesson. So there's a lot of information that people are pulling from different sources. So I'm not going to start with like the whole geopolitics setup today. What I was really interested in sort of starting with was trying to map out which planets I actually wanted to talk about per episode. Because by and large, the majority of stuff that has been written, again, and none of this is peer reviewed. Apologies.
This is
But
new
it is
territory.
but no, not necessarily. There's a lot of people writing about Star Wars, but they aren't doing it in peer reviewed sources. They're like, they're people in the fandom, people are writing. Sure. There's the canon, writing where it's like people like Pablo Hidalgo who are publishing complete guides. Yeah. But then there's also just the straight up nerd fans like me who want to bring these ideas into the science realm. And so a lot of that's being done on various like people's like personal blogs. It's like their lab page or their science writing page, but here's a post about Star Wars or something. So,
very cool.
Right.
I'm glad people are doing that.
Oh, yeah. So the first thing I did is I just went through and I made a list of basically which planets appear in which films.
Sure.
So I could figure out, because I didn't want to talk about like, Tatooine's the one that's by and large written about the most.
Right.
We could probably
But we don't need to talk about Hoth today because Hoth is not
Hoth
in this.
isn't in the episode. Yeah. And in fact, Tatooine is really the only planet we actually get a good look at, aside from right before they blow up
that's
Alderaan.
A good point. Yeah, we don't get a good look at Alderaan at all.
I have to presume it's a bit Earth-like based on what it looks like from far away.
Yeah. Well, in the comics and sort of literature, Alderaan is a peaceful. It's a planet that thrives on art and literature, and diplomacy, and so it's a planet that's, I would say, rich in resources, and has a lot of like temperate climate. Like, I don't know much about the climate, but it is Earth-like, but I guess I would say the sort of the best version of Earth with like, lakes and waterfalls and
but Earth is really ecologically diverse, and what we see in a lot of these Star Wars planets, just at the outset, our glimpse is that we're seeing snapshots of habitats. But
true.
Like when people are writing about Tatooine, they talk about it as a whole desert planet. So Earth has all these different kinds of ecozones, and a lot of the Star Wars planets, the way they're described, they tend to be like, this is the swamp planet.
I would compare Alderaan to Naboo, maybe. Like, I don't think they're the same, but I think that they would probably be similar-ish.
Right. So basically what I did is I made this list of which planets appear in which episodes and sort of counted them and whatnot. And so you see, like, by and large, the majority of action in each episode takes place on between 3 to 7 planets. Most are between 3 to 5, and there's a couple where you get some scenes that are like those, like a montage of people all in a bunch of different places celebrating or something.
Right.
And so those I've been counting as well. They go into the count. So like Revenge of the Sith has 12 planets, which is the highest of any of the movies, including Rogue One and Solo.
Wow. Okay. And you said that there's only really Tatooine.
That's the only one we really get a good look at.
Because we spend most of our time on this ship.
Right. So they're on Tatooine quite a lot.
Yeah.
Then we see Alderaan from space get blown up. And then we spend, I think the very end is on Yavin 4, right?
Yavin 4 is, the planet where the rebel base is,
Right. We don't see a lot of Yavin 4.
It's a moon. It's a moon, yes. It's a moon of Yavin,
Yeah. But we don't really see a lot of it. It looks like meant to be a bit like a sort of a Greek Colosseum is kind of the vibe that I think the video
it's got
gives
a lot of, I don't,
and whatnotery, but we don't see a lot.
Woods,
so really in
forest.
Number 1, all we see, but you don't see any of that in A New Hope.
Well, you see a bit of it. There are some shots of the ships taking off, and you can see that there's like sort of a trees and forest. Right. It looks a bit like Endor.
Yeah, but by and large, Tatooine is what is all we see of A New Hope. And I'm not going to start talking about the ecosystems of the Death Star, although maybe we could, but not today.
I mean, it's it's like a giant cruise ship. They've got a nightclub, they've got a cafeteria,
the classic canteen.
I mean, I actually could talk a little bit about the Death Star because, and I was going to wait until the end to talk about this book, but I guess I can't not talk about it. There's a book called Lost Stars, which is actually about a two. It's mainly about two people who, as like, enrolled in the Imperial Academy, and so they grew up together as children, and then they enrolled in the Imperial Academy, and so they were actually like in the Imperial Army, and the Imperial Academy was like basically, their ticket off of this planet they were on, and like the way that they could like have like a, I guess a good life, a life where they were being paid well and had sort of prestigious. They wanted to be pilots,
Right.
and
I think
so
there's obvious links to the way the military in the
yes,
United States is structured, where
sure,
people view it as a way to
raise
earn
your
a
status.
society, a
Yes.
status in society. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're both in the Imperial. In Lost Stars, they're in the Imperial Academy, and then one of them, and then when the Death Star blows up, then that creates some. People have different responses in the Academy to that event. So I'll wait until we get
Okay.
maybe towards that part of our discussion. But anyway, oh, I was gonna say supposedly in the cafeteria in the Imperial on the Death Star, the food is very pragmatic. It's more like,
It's like
Soylent Green than like it's not
chicken nuggets cut into the shape of bantha.
no, it's like protein shakes and shit. It's not
Okay.
like a meal that you would enjoy. It's like a meal for utility. So everything in the Empire is about utility.
Mhm.
And so the meals are kind of bland but nutrient rich and
Nutritious.
functional.
Okay.
Yeah, they're functional. Anyway, all right, well, let's just get right into it. So this is, I don't think we can really talk about this movie in a vacuum, like without thinking about the other films and stories that we know about. But it is the introduction. If you're looking at this in terms of how the material was released, it is our introduction to the world of Star Wars, to the galaxy, if you will. So we're getting introduced to all these characters that will be following for the next 3 movies, and then also we'll be following tangentially through their family connections, throughout time, basically, until we jump to some area where no one mentions Luke and Leia, which hasn't really happened yet.
Not yet.
So,
and we both watched the edition that is on Disney Plus, right?
That's
is that
correct.
The one you watched?
So we watched the edition
one
on
with
Disney
the
Plus. Yeah.
1997 special add-ins on.
Yes, but even those have been modified since the 90s. That there are modifications. They modified the graphics for that additional Jabba scene. They modified the Greedo Han.
I did notice the Jabba scene looked less choppy today. Like it looked smoother.
I still think those we don't, I don't want to talk too much about the graphics. I don't, want to talk too much about the additional stuff that was added. I do see.
What do you want to talk too much about?
I don't love the Jabba scene. It feels like a deleted scene. At the time, I remember going like, oh, this is awesome because I'm getting more Star Wars. But it doesn't really add anything to the film. That's fine. I'm not angry about it. I'm just like, I don't need the scene. Everything that just happened, I just learned from Greedo, so I don't need this.
But I disagree because you get more Han.
Yeah, I mean, more
in
Han
any
is
world that's a good universe.
I mean, I'm just gonna lay this right out there. Han Solo is my sexuality.
Is this your thirst moment?
I'm just gonna lay it all out. My sexual awakening is because of Han Solo. Okay, and I think I'm not alone there. Men and women across the galaxy can agree with me there. And I feel like I just really appreciated all of Harrison Ford's like nuances in his performance, and like just the way Han Solo walks, like he doesn't give a flying fuck. I don't know if you've noticed, but he walks into a room like he could care less about literally everything. And I really love that.
I mean, he literally shoots Greedo in the cantina and then is just like, all right, later. Sorry about the mess.
Yeah, he waltzes out of there like he spilled a cup of coffee. But then you see moments where he does care. Like in the trash compactor.
You mean when he's about to be squished?
When he's but
That
he's
seems like a good moment to care.
No, but he's spending most of his time trying to get Princess Leia up on top of the garbage so she doesn't get squished.
True.
So you see, it's like he has everything I love: sarcasm. He's grumpy, but he's got a soft interior.
Before your Han Solo sexual awakening, I was gonna say your favorite characters are always the sarcastic ones.
Oh yeah, Peter Venkman
and Raphael.
Yes, so my childhood crushes were Peter Venkman, Han Solo, and Raphael the Ninja Turtle, the sarcastic Ninja Turtle. Yes, I had a crush on a Ninja Turtle.
And
don't ask me about it.
I was just gonna say, if you would like to, for your consideration, my compliments of that were
the nerds.
Leonardo.
Yeah, you always like the nerds.
Leonardo.
Yes.
Egon.
Yes.
And young Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Young Obi-Wan Kenobi, not old
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I mean, respect the maturity of old Obi-Wan. But
yeah, respect for sure.
Ewan McGregor is my thirst moment.
Right. Yeah. So we'll expect a lot of thirst from you once we get to the prequels. Okay. Now that I've gotten that out of the way. Yeah, so I like all the character introductions. I really appreciate that when Leia is introduced, she's introduced as a female character who's doing something. Like when we meet her, she's trying to get these plans off the ship. She's, shooting at the stormtroopers. Like she's very, I appreciate all of her agency in this story. Mm-hmm. Luke is a hick. He is a hick, and I love it. Like he's a stupid farm boy, and I would think one of the most classic Luke things is at the end when they're all like talking about shooting the torpedoes into the Death Star, and they're like, "That's impossible," and Luke's basically like, "Oh shit." Like I used to shoot womp rats, and it wasn't no bigger than that. And I'm like, he is the biggest hick. I love the contrast.
Dumb. He's been sheltered.
He's naive.
He's lived his whole life in this backwater, like outer rim planet on a farm with two other people.
Yes, he's been intentionally sheltered because I can only imagine that literally everyone who knows him is afraid that he'll turn into Darth Vader.
Like as a toddler, he throws a tantrum and everyone's like,
shit. Every time he says, "I want to be a Jedi like my father," I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi's butthole tightens just a little bit. He's like, maybe
not just like your father, though.
Just like your father. Yeah, no, I love all three of them. I feel like, to me, the movie really gets going when they get together, but we'll get to that. So, anyway, all I wanted to say is that I really think that all the characters are introduced very well in this movie. I think that's the majority of this movie is introducing people, to be honest. Anyway, I want to throw it to you. What would you like to talk about?
I have a lot of notes written up about the biomes, as we were talking about, and the animals.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
yes.
I focused on Tatooine,
which is a good segue from Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're on Tatooine. And again, one thing I want to note is that Tatooine is a planet that appears in every single of the first 6 episodes.
Oh.
Yep.
Even in an Empire?
That is what I have written down. Yeah. Let's see.
I don't remember it being an Empire.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not in the first 6. I'm sorry. It's in A New Hope, Jedi. Phantom Menace,
yes.
Clones,
yes.
Sith, but just as like a cutaway. And then it's in the first 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we don't go back to Tatooine, I think, until Rise of Skywalker, right?
I don't have it on my Rise of Skywalker list, but
Rey goes back to Tatooine. She goes back to Luke's homestead at the end.
Right.
Rise of Skywalker. So we're definitely back in Tatooine there.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of planets I thought were Tatooine, but aren't. Like there's in The Mandalorian, they go to Navarro or something. And I was like, is that fucking Tatooine?
I didn't have time to get through all the Mando.
That's okay. There's plenty of time for that.
I think they do go to Tatooine. Maybe not. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. They do go to Tatooine because Dollar Tree Han Solo is there, as I like to call him. Sitting at Han
Also,
Solo's table. Like, what are you
also
doing
known
there?
as another thirst moment. It's Timothy Oliphant.
No. Don't. I don't want to. I don't want to make any mistakes there. Timothy Oliphant is in. I'm talking about Dollar Tree Han Solo in the
Oh,
first season. Timothy Oliphant is a fine wine of a man.
Yes.
He is
Okay.
a glass of expensive whiskey, and I would not speak of him in that way at
Okay.
all.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm glad. Thank
So
you for thanking me.
Tatooine. Thank you for
Tatooine.
acknowledging that Tatooine.
Yes.
So, one thing that the internet likes to obsess about in terms of Tatooine at a planetary level is that it is one planet with two suns.
Yes, they love that. They love to talk
They
about
love
that.
that because
October has two sons as well, though, right?
so the interesting thing is that people tend to like to point this out, historically speaking, as like Star Wars doesn't get its space right because this planet has two suns.
Mm-hmm.
But that is actually known as a binary star system, and it's a real thing.
Oh,
Apparently, a lot more common than we originally thought when we were first learning about the space. And so, so the binary star system is essentially one where you have two stars that are orbiting around a common large mass.
Okay.
And Tatooine then is known as a circumbinary planet.
Wow.
Because there's two stars. So
nice.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that people write about
is that
Tatooine,
why it's so fucking hot there?
That's exactly what a lot of people think is that it is too hot.
Okay.
It's so hot because of all this, the double sun action.
So it's just like it's just extra hot.
Yeah. And what I would really like to know, but I didn't have the time to get into, is like how does this like double gravitational pull affect sort of some of the other like weather patterns on Tatooine, or if they go through cycles of are they in a long dry cycle and then eventually they're going to get a some other sort of cycle drawn up.
Well, we do know that Luke's uncle is a moisture farmer,
right?
And we've heard about that in the film, but also in the comics. Anytime you go to Tatooine and there's a flashback like to Tatooine during this time period, water is very scarce. There's actually like the huts, I believe, control a lot of the water supply. And so that is a big problem.
That's their gangster fodder.
Yeah. So in addition to controlling spice, which of course is the drug of this world.
Arms.
Yeah, and arms and whatnot. They also control the water supply a lot of the time. But yeah, so certainly it's very dry there, it seems like. How does one farm moisture? I don't know. I don't really know that.
They've got these things that take it out of the air.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. That's what he's looking for, is like help with some part that he needs. Like that's why he gets C-3PO, is so he can communicate with his like moisture farm equipment.
Right. And so what we don't see in the movie. So here's another thing I'd like to mention, which is a video on. There's a video, you can look it up on YouTube. It's called "How Star Wars Was Saved in the Edit," and it's an excellent. I show it in my class because I teach editing, and so the editors, Richard Chew, Paul Hirsch, and Marcia Lucas, at the time wife of George Lucas, edited this film. And it did notoriously saved it from destruction or just from boredom. Really, it was terrible. The first cut was horrendous.
Have you seen this mythical first cut?
No, but I did see they did put back together what the beginning of the film was, and also like Brian De Palma, Steven Spielberg. They all watched an early cut of it, and they were like, "This is fucking terrible."
They're like, "George, man, we need to talk."
George, we're concerned. Anyway. The editing team won an Oscar for best editing because they restructured so much of this movie. So the original cut of this movie had a whole section at the beginning, and you can look up the scenes on YouTube. They're quite boring.
You should. So, can you link them to one of our pages?
I will. Yeah. Okay. And there's a whole opening where, so basically the original opening was on the ship as you see it, gets boarded by Darth Vader. Then we go to Tatooine immediately, and we meet Luke Skywalker, and like he's with one of these moisture robots, and it breaks down, and it's very silly. And then he goes to like some kind of pub, and is talking to his friend Biggs, and they're talking about the Empire, and he's looking up in the sky at a big fight between the Empire and the ship that's up there. Anyway, it's like going back and forth between Tatooine and the fight on the ship. So instead of it all happening and then the
So it's
droids being
not
jettisoned,
cohesive.
right? There's a lot of cutting back and forth, and also Luke gets introduced before he really becomes part of the story. We're like he's like talking to his friends about how he wishes he could get off Tatooine, and it's this whole thing.
Was there a musical number? Because I really feel like it needed a musical number.
It would have been good, I think. Maybe it would have made it a little more exciting. I mean, the scenes are interesting to watch just to see like what was there, but it's good they cut it. So they go back and forth. Then they go back to the Empire. So they're going back and forth between Tatooine and the Empire. The other big change was that you see Darth Vader force choke the guys in the boardroom before you meet Obi Wan Kenobi in the original cut. Mm-hmm. And so the editors were like, hey, we should learn about the Force from Obi Wan and his whole speech.
That you can see how it's twisted.
Right. So so instead of going back and forth between the Empire, what they did was they had the droids escape. Then we go to Tatooine with the droids. Because we haven't met Luke yet, we don't know whether this planet is hostile or not, right? Because the first thing we meet are Jawas. And then we don't meet Luke until he actually becomes part of the story, where the droids are being sold and they buy the droids. So that's when we meet Luke.
It all makes a lot more sense the way it panned out.
Right. So they restructured the whole beginning. They actually restructured the whole ending. All those scenes of Princess Leia watching the scopes and the dogfight and all that, none of that was in the original ending. They just pulled that from other footage. That wasn't supposed to be part of the ending, and it added tension because you're like, oh no, the rebels are gonna get fucking blown up, and then you go back to the fight, and then you're looking at the rebels and oh my god, they're getting closer, and then we're going back to the fight. Anyway, none of that was in the original cut, and so that was something that was completely created by the editing team, basically using footage they had.
Nice.
Anyway, it's fascinating. I think it's a really good look at how editing can really change a film and improve it, and how editors control what they call in the video control the flow of information.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Force. We learn about it from Obi Wan, and then we see it being warped by the way Darth Vader uses it, rather than seeing Darth Vader use it first and then later have it explained to us by Obi Wan. So they controlled sort of that narrative in a different way, and so it's really fascinating. It's called When Star Wars Was Saved. How Star Wars was saved in the edit. We'll put a link on our page.
Nice. Okay, so Tatooine, our desert planet, in the Outer Rim.
Hot as hell. It's in the Outer Rim, yes. In these more rural planets, where the core worlds are the more urban planets.
And I don't want to talk about all that today because I do want to talk about all that, but I want to get into that a little bit later when that becomes like a key feature of what's going on in more of the prequels.
The prequels,
I think you get more information more relevant there. So for now, let's just start with this desert planet of Tatooine. Okay, so a desert. Mm-hmm. What is the main thing that you think of when you think about a desert?
It's hot. It's sandy.
It's sandy, okay. Not necessarily
Anakin
always,
does
but in
not
this
like
case,
sand.
Nope. Neither do I really. I don't like it.
Yeah, it gets in everything, as they say.
So another thing that's important about deserts can actually be hot or cold, technically.
Oh, well, they're cold at night, typically, right?
Right, but you can have you don't have to necessarily have a desert that's super, super hot all the time.
Oh.
It's mostly defined by precipitation. Mm-hmm. So less than 10 inches of precipitation a year qualifies as a desert. So they have what's called like a low biomass, basically like the amount of living things in the area is like relatively low. Like if you took all the living things, all the plants and animals, and you put them on a scale, it wouldn't be a very high number.
Okay.
The biomass is low, and they have like low primary productivity. So there's not lots of like vegetation.
That'd have to be a big scale.
It'd be a big, big scale, but
really
not
big.
As big a scale as you would need for like a rainforest. Yeah. Rainforests have a high biomass.
Well, that crate dragon at the very least would take up a lot of space.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's see. So the two largest deserts that we have on Earth are actually in polar regions. Technically, there's a desert in the Antarctic and one in the Arctic.
Okay.
So the third largest desert we have in Earth is the Sahara.
Okay.
And I think that's one that we could use as sort of like a mental model for Tatooine.
Sure.
The Sahara, or like even Australia, or like the Arabian Desert, something like that. The Kalahari. But I think Sahara is a pretty good model.
Okay.
Yeah. So the main species that we see in this episode of Star Wars are banthas and dewbacks.
Yes.
And then we get a little tiny peek in the specialized edition that we now all have as the primary edition of what's called a Ronto, which is like
are those little guys running around at the
No, I have to look up those guys' names. This is one that's like when they're at is it Mos Eisley, and there's like right outside the scene, there's like a guy that he looks like he's on like a giant dinosaur.
Yes.
That's a Ronto.
Is that what the stormtroopers were riding in the desert as well?
The stormtroopers mainly ride dewbacks.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mostly wanted to talk about banthas and dewbacks, and also note that we've also got a couple what are termed as humanoid species. Although, given the fact that humans are like really only one part of this galaxy, I don't know if
it's very human centric.
It is. We've got a very anthropocentric language to talk about Star Wars, but Jawas and Tusken Raiders are the sort of sentient, socially organized species.
Yes, and they seem to be very communally organized. Both of those.
So, let's see. Okay, so it's a subtropical desert, so that means it's hot and dry. For animals that are living in this kind of biome, the main constraints that they face are going to be things like heat and access to water.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we're thinking about the animals, the banthas and the dewbacks that we see here as our like flagship visit Tatooine species.
Both animals that are being ridden or used
right.
As
that's another thing I wanted to mention is that they both appear to be domesticated.
Yes.
So we aren't talking about any of the wild species, but they are both referred to as like endemic to Tatooine. So they are native to this planet. So what I really wanted to think about is like what kinds of adaptations that we would expect to see in these kinds of species so that they could actually live in this harsh, hot, dry environment. So in desert regions, like the bantha and the dewbacks, we don't typically see a lot of what are called megafauna. Megafauna basically, well, go ahead and guess what megafauna means.
Big plants.
No. That would be megaflora.
Big animals.
Like Audrey 2 is like a megaflora, I think.
Big animals.
Big ass animals is megafauna.
I feel like this podcast is going to be a lot of me showing how stupid I am when it comes to...
No, you can edit that part out.
No, I'm not going to. Believe me. I want everyone to know how fucking stupid I am when it comes to... reality.
Let the audience learn around with you.
Yeah, we're learning together, audience. I'm learning things too. Megafauna.
Yeah,
big ass animals.
Yeah. So we have megafauna on Earth. They can be herbivores, which means they eat plants, carnivores, which means they eat meat, or omnivores, which means they eat a mix of plants and animal protein. Some sources define megafauna as like 100 pounds or 45 kilograms or greater, but like generally you're really thinking more about like animals that are over a ton, which is 1,000 kilograms or 200. Like
so we're talking more like elephant sized.
Elephants, rhinos, hippos. Mostly in contemporary times, what we have are mammalian megafauna. We don't have a lot of like reptilian megafauna anymore, although we do have some, depending on how you classify them, like crocodiles or alligators. Like, but dinosaurs would be a good example of like a fossil record megafauna. So what I really wanted to think about is like, okay, let's think about these banthas and these dewbacks. What kinds of species like that live on Earth would be a corollary? What, might they be modeled on, and how could we then understand them in the Star Wars universe? And I did want to give a quick shout out to one of my favorite extinct megafauna, known as Diprotodon, which was a hippo-sized marsupial that lived in
Oh.
Australia.
Wait, are you
related
saying
to
that
the koala and the wombat? So I'm
that's so
hoping we're
cute?
talking about hippo-sized cubes of poop, I hope.
Ooh. Oh yeah, because they poop cubes, right?
Wombats poop cubes, yeah.
Wow. Are you saying the banthas are marsupials?
No. I just
Okay.
wanted to give a shout out to my favorite extinct megafauna.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Giant marsupials.
Yeah, it's giant hippo-sized, like a hippo-sized wombat,
I feel
basically.
like those would be real cozy if you were to cuddle up inside a pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would be in its pocket.
Yes.
It'd be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that's interesting about the banthas and the dewbacks, as a side note, is that they both appear to be domesticated.
Yes.
And the species that I think it's safe to say that humans are probably not endemic to this world. Like not today, but another day, I want to talk about the fact that it seems like humans have basically colonized all these other planets. And so, like, there's got to be a human planet where humans evolved and then later spread out.
There are planets like where the Mon Calamari live, where it's like not really any planets, like, you know, Admiral Akbar, like his people,
right?
Like they're those guys, and like there aren't really humans there.
Right.
It's a planets that's mostly water. So
right, like given what we know about the way evolution works, is that it's pretty unlikely that humans would have evolved independently multiple times on different planets. So I think that we don't know which planet humans came from, but it's safe to say that on most of the planets that we see them from, they're colonizing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I doubt that it's possible that the people domesticated the dewbacks, but I'm pretty sure everything that I've read is that there's a lot of people who are writing about this very special relationship between bantha and Tusken Raiders.
Okay.
So I want to talk about that in another episode, not today.
Okay, so we'll table that. We'll table that. There's a really great episode in season 2 of The Mandalorian that I think gets really a lot more into the Tuskens and the banthas.
Yeah, because basically what we see in A New Hope is like the Tusken Raiders are portrayed as these like aggressive, angry, dangerous.
Yeah, they're like sand monsters that'll murder you. Yeah,
right. But I mean, like, let's think about that more in terms of like humans are colonizing their planet.
Yeah.
So flip the script there is what I'm saying.
And maybe, you know, taking over their land.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so banthas, mammalian herbivores.
Okay.
Probably like I think their size wise look like about like what you would expect from an elephant, or given their like sort of flowy locks, more like a mammoth maybe.
Yeah. They definitely got that woolly mammoth look to them.
A modern day, I think corollary would be like the yak.
Yes.
But a much larger
yak.
Yeah, because yaks are a species that live in deserts. Domesticated ones are in Central Asia, so they're actually in like a colder desert environment, which makes a lot more sense given their super fuzzy, furry bodies.
Yes.
Okay. So what is, Nicole, a key mammalian trait?
They produce milk?
They produce milk. So we have to assume that banthas make milk.
Well, they do, because people in Star Wars drink bantha milk.
And in fact, Luke is sharing a tall, frosty glass of bantha milk in that scene with Uncle Owen.
Right,
and
Beru is pouring the blue bantha milk. That's right.
Right. Yeah. So now I feel like I want to know what bantha milk tastes like.
Well, I think you can get, not that it's real bantha milk. I can't believe I just said that. But when you go to Galaxy's Edge, when we eventually
you
can
get a bantha milkshake?
I'm pretty sure you can get bantha milk there.
Oh,
listeners, tweeted us. We do have a Twitter now at Tauntauns. Can you get bantha milk at the Galaxy's Edge?
And what does it taste like?
And what does it taste like?
I love that. Okay, so the bantha that's featured in A New Hope is actually played by a 22-year-old female Asian elephant.
Oh.
Whose name was, I'm going to totally butcher the pronunciation, Margie? Margie.
Oh,
Mardji.
Margie.
Yeah. So I also wanted to just say here that Asian elephants are the largest living land animal in Asia, and that on the IUCN Red List they are endangered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not so good.
No.
So Margie apparently did not love her costume.
I
and
wouldn't
they
think
had,
so.
A lot of
And
challenges.
it's very hot out there.
Yes,
because they
and
were in
she's
Tunisia shooting.
Right. And they also shot, I believe I had read that they filmed some of her scenes in the, where was it? I can't remember. They didn't film all of her scenes there.
Okay. Well, the actors were in Tunisia and it was very hot. In fact,
I want to say they filmed some of her scenes in Death Valley.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, the set is still like they never took it down. It's still there.
Bucket list visit right there.
Right? Yes. Yeah. Right after we get some bantha milk over at Galaxy's Edge.
Right. I feel like one of those trips is a lot more realistic.
We have to take these trips, though.
Yeah.
We can't just say it.
Yeah. Okay, so they had a lot of challenges to create her costume because they basically wanted her giant elephantness, but didn't want her to look like an elephant. So there's a video clip you can post that I sent you.
Yes.
It's just some daily footage. It doesn't have any sound, but you can see them trying to get her in the filming, and every once in a while she just pops her trunk out and is trying to take the costume off.
She just doesn't want it. She's like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so she's a big mammalian herbivore.
Okay.
And then we've got the dewbacks, which are according to the Star Wars field guide.
Ooh, yes. Star Wars, the wildlife of Star Wars, a field guide.
Yes, the wildlife of Star Wars, which I'm not sure if it's canon or not, but whatever.
Let's just say it is.
I love it. So we knew they're obviously reptilian, but this lists them as omnivores, which is interesting. What are they eating? I'd like to know. It also says that the reason they're named dewbacks is because they lick the dew off of their neighbors' backs in the morning. I'm a little skeptical on that fact.
I mean, that sounds about right. It is very hot there, and they're looking for moisture.
Sure, but a giant, reptiles rarely live in social groups. And also a giant reptile that would be looking for a meaty snack would definitely not live in a big social group.
I mean, I feel like but these are domesticated, right?
Yeah. But so this is another point is when you domesticate animals, why would anyone domesticate an animal that requires a higher quality diet than yourself? Domesticate the herbivores because you can give them lowbrows forage.
That's a good
point.
But
if you got to can you imagine trying to domesticate a lion?
But think about
Terrible
this. What
idea.
could be a better way to show your neighbor how much you care than to lick the dew off
taking
their back?
Taking your new dew back around the block.
I mean licking the dew off your neighbor's back.
But I feel
touch that one. It's gonna skip right past that.
Yeah, I feel for me, whenever I come up with these questions that I'm that doesn't quite make sense, then I go, oh wait, we are talking about a fictional imaginary world. So if I'm going to get all hung up on whether or not dewbacks live in social groups, maybe I should just back up.
I mean, that's what we're doing, is it not?
Okay. I don't think it's likely that they would live in social groups in the wild.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think the best corollary we have for a dewback would be a Komodo dragon, which live in Indonesia.
Well, maybe they're all having to work together. Maybe it's when you go to the office and you're stuck with a group of people and you're I don't really
just
like
make
them.
The best of it.
Yeah, it's the dewbacks would prefer to be alone, but now they've been domesticated and they've got stormtroopers riding on their backs, and they're just kind of forced to make idle chit chat, and that just to get through the day
around the water cooler,
exactly.
So to speak. So Komodo dragons are a bit on the small side to really give us a good representation of a dewback. So I also wanted to give a shout out to another extinct Australian megafauna, which is another monitor reptile. So Komodo dragons are a type of reptile known as a monitor lizard. This one was called the Megalania.
Ooh.
And it was up to 7 meters long, which is 23 feet, and up to 1,940 kilograms, which is over 4,000 pounds.
Wow, that's a big lizard.
Yeah. So just imagine like a Komodo dragon, but it's like 4,000 pounds instead of like 150
I
pounds.
mean, that sounds fucking terrifying.
Extra shout out loves to all my Pleistocene era megafauna.
That is fucking terrifying.
All right. So if you want to jump in and talk about anything else, I've got
Yeah,
some more
let's
stuff about adaptations, but let's what do you want to talk about?
I would like to first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the Force because this is our introduction to the Force.
Okay.
And I this time around while watching this movie, I was very interested in how the Force will evolve as we see it being used over time by different people. And so I just made note of some things. So first of all, the Force is described by others in this story as a religion, which implies that it has some kind of spiritual and hierarchical structure. We don't get any sense of what that structure is in this film.
Well, religion isn't just about like spiritual beings like force ghosts,
Yeah.
right? And it isn't just about like hierarchical
But it
structure
has
where you've
tenets.
got Jedi's, you've got rules,
Exactly. That's what
guidelines.
I think that's what I mean.
Ritual.
Yes.
Ritual specialists.
Yes. But all of that stuff we get later, but we don't get it yet. All we know is that there were Jedi Knights. That's all we get. We get a little bit of the philosophy from Obi Wan Kenobi. I'm not going to get into the speech. We all know it, about how the Force surrounds us and binds us and all of that, which is beautiful, I think.
Actually, in my anthro class, when we're talking about religion and different types of religious beliefs, I use the Force as an example because it's basically this like impersonal spiritual force that can inhabit that people can inhabit, and it gives them like power. It's kind of like mana, which is like an oceanic sort of real life example of what it helps people understand what mana is when you're like, okay, think about the Force. It's like something that gives you prestige, it gives you harness. You can harness, it makes you powerful, but it isn't like a particular entity. It isn't a particular individual or a particular animal. It's something that's like is within you or places maybe.
Sure. I also feel like this is they didn't say it, but it also given what we know. Well, I guess if we don't know anything about the Skywalker family, or we do actually, we know that Luke's father was a Jedi, even if we don't know that Anakin and Darth Vader are the same person. We know that Luke's father was a Jedi, and it seems like maybe the Force is something that's passed down along lineage. That seems like something that's happening, at least in this movie. And it apparently is something they continue throughout the rest of the stories. The other thing I noticed in this, I was paying attention to what exactly do we see the Force do in this film. We see it used for mind control,
for choking somebody out.
We see it used. We see it used to communicate from beyond death.
We also see that it's something where somebody can feel pain from somebody else, like when Alderaan gets blown up.
Yeah, we can connect with others emotionally. We can sense things. We can sense emotions. We can sense objects. And questionable, maybe healing, perhaps, because Obi-Wan does bend over Luke when he gets hit in the head by the Tusken Raiders, and he does pinch his forehead a bit, and it either you could read that as he's checking him, or you could read it that he's performing some kind of he's maybe reviving him, because Luke does.
It's too bad he's not just giving him a little funny face.
Well, but he pinches. It's not like he touches his head or looks for injuries. So I feel like he could be sensing his body, but he wouldn't need to touch him to sense his pain, because we know he doesn't need to touch someone to do that. So I have seen people speculate that perhaps Obi-Wan going to be touching Luke's forehead while Luke is unconscious.
Maybe it helps him to make a greater connection, and he gets a better sense of Luke's status.
Or he might be reviving him, is what I'm saying, because he wakes up very shortly after he's been touched.
Right. But it isn't really until they don't use that again until you get to the second sequel.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
So I also noticed that Obi Wan Kenobi uses the Force as in a mental way. Like he uses it mostly through mind and senses. Like and Darth Vader is the only one we see in this film use it in a physical way, which of course is he uses it to choke someone. We don't see anyone use the Force to
Get a cup of coffee.
lift objects physically until this next movie.
Find the remote control.
Yeah, call the remote control to your hand. I sure wish I could do that. So I just wanted to point that out. That and we know that later we'll find out that with the Sith, everything is very physical and passion based and inward, and that with the Jedi, their religious philosophy is that we're doing for others and we're connected to others. And so I don't know, maybe that's the beginning of that. But we're seeing it being used only in a physical way by Darth Vader in this movie.
Okay, moment of truth.
Yeah.
If you had the Force, what is the most frequent use you would use the Force for?
God. Oh, wow. Let me think about this.
You've never thought of, tell me you've never thought about this before?
I don't think I would want to know other people's feelings.
No.
So I think
I do enough of that already.
I feel like I would probably use it maybe I'm a Sith. I would maybe use it in a more physical way to get objects to me or to manipulate my physical environment.
Just thinking like how many times I'm looking for my glasses or my phone or my keys. And it's like, if I had the Force, I would just call them to me.
I don't want to see the future.
Nope.
I don't want to feel other people's pain. I don't even want to feel my own pain. So I think those would be hard for me. I think that being a Force user and being sensitive to other people's emotions would be overwhelming for me.
I mean, not that this is in this movie, but that's what all of the training is about, is like controlling your, like compartmentalizing, essentially, is what they're teaching them to do.
Well, but presumably Luke and Leia have had access to the Force this whole time and probably have used it and not been aware of it. Luke has used it to whatever he said he does to womp rats, like drop things on womp rats or whatever he used to make himself a good pilot, to get things to fit into small spaces, which he does later when he's using the Force for that, probably.
Yeah.
And I rarely notice things I've never noticed before. But this time around, speaking of the Force, I thought about how Darth Vader is trying to torture Leia to get the location of the rebel base out of her.
And he brings like torture droid model with the
big old needle.
With the needle. So what do you think they give her, like Force serum, like truth serum or something?
I think in a lot of the literature, especially in the legends, they give her drugs and stuff to try to get it out of her. So I'm wondering, what I thought of this time around was Vader makes it a point to say to Tarkin, she's surprisingly resistant.
She's resistant to the mind
probe.
Or whatever. Yeah,
and I was wondering, like, I wonder if the Force, if she was able to, withstand all of that because that she has access to the Force, even if she doesn't know it. I was wondering, if that was an untapped ability of hers. But
I think that's plausible, because she does use later in the series the Force for more of the long distance communication and more of the like mental abilities rather than more physical ones that we see.
We do see her use a physical ability once in The Last Jedi. But I do also in some of the books, they're in Bloodline, which is a book that takes place before The Force Awakens, but like 7 years before The Force Awakens. It's a book about Leia. And she's at that time the Republic is starting to get, the First Order is kind of rising and all that stuff. But anyway, in the book, she says that she chose not to become a Jedi. It's a little bit of a different story than what you get in The Rise of Skywalker. She chose not to become a Jedi, but that she did use her power, her Force abilities in negotiations and in reading other people in
Mm.
negotiate. So she used the sensory part of the Force to help her with diplomacy and to
Right.
nudge things in her direction. But that she didn't. That she chose not to follow the Jedi path that her brother did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. What else? God, I have so much here. There's just so much. I could talk about so many things. What do you have another thing that you would like to talk about?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's go for it.
So, one thing I'm really interested in as an anthropologist are evolutionary adaptations. And so, an adaptation is some trait that has been shaped through evolution, but usually in response to some sort of selective pressure, which is like something that is constraining or pushing up against a trait. And, traits that may, in a given environment, so it's very environmentally specific. Environment can refer to like a physical environment, but it could also be like a social environment, depending on the trait. So here, like we've established, the main constraints, environmental constraints, are in the desert are heat and access to water.
Yes.
And so I wondered, in what ways do creatures on Tatooine, how have they sort of evolved evolutionarily to deal with these problems? Of course, we see like humans build shelters and these like moisture farms, right? So we have cultural adaptations.
And they've built droids.
They built droids to do their bidding in the hot summer day. Droids they can stay inside and drink a frosty glass of bantha milk.
I feel like I could spend an hour just talking about how droids are treated in this movie, and the inhumaneness in this movie, especially the way the droids are treated. Anyway.
Okay, so with the issue of heat, we know that reptiles are ectothermic, which means that like their body temperature is controlled by the surrounding environment. So they should have sort of like shade-seeking behaviors. We don't see the dewbacks doing this. They're like out in the midday sun.
But again, they're
sort of
being
forced to.
Yeah, they're being ridden, so they don't really have a choice. We don't see the stormtroopers carrying around parasols.
They should, though.
But maybe
if
they
want like good dewback care. If somebody's writing like the dewback animal husbandry manual,
they
should
need to
build them some little
put
shelters.
a little tent on those guys.
Yeah,
they can put it on them, and they'll just carry it around with them.
Yes, exactly. Mammals, on the other hand, are endothermic. And so the banthas, we have to assume, are responsible for maintaining their own body temperature, which would be really tricky in this environment because it's metabolically very expensive to continually cool your body down when you're so hot. So we don't see them doing any shade-seeking behaviors. We don't see them like burrowing underground. I think it's safe to assume
I'd
that
love
like
a deleted scene. I'd love a deleted scene of a dewback trying to burrow underground and a stormtrooper just getting thrown off,
covered in sand.
Like, oh god.
I think we have to assume that like wild banthas were like more of a cave dwelling species. Like they would need daytime shade, and these species, I think, if they were not being worked domestically, would be either more with a nocturnal activity pattern or more likely crepuscular, which means they're like dawn and dusk active rather than active in the middle of the day.
Well, do you think that given that the Tusken Raiders, if we assume that the Tusken people, I'm not even going to call them Raiders because that seems very pointed.
This is what I'm saying.
The Tusken people or the Tuskens, or I'm not sure what the proper term is. If they originated on this planet, I have to wonder if maybe they would keep to a more nighttime schedule as well.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really see them as much I think that actually later in the prequels we do see them
we see them in the daytime. We see them
They're
at night
active
and
in the
today.
nighttime in the camp. Yeah. So I think they might be more nocturnal.
But we do see them in the daytime as well.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. So then we would have like some like biological adaptations is what I'm really more interested in. So I wanted to tell you about a couple really interesting real life examples, and we can then speculate whether or not the banthas and the dewbacks have this. So first of all, I learned this week that the Gila monster, one of their adaptations to all of the like the lack of water in their environment is essentially that they use their own bladder for water storage.
Ooh.
And it can account for up to 25% of their body mass.
Wow.
Just carrying around a big sloshy bladder full of
They're
water.
just, their own, hat with the cans and the tubes.
Exactly. Exactly. 100%.
Do they drink the pee-pee? Is that
no? It just like their body
cools them
draws.
down.
No. Sorry, we're not talking about heat anymore. We're talking about access to water more. Yeah. Sorry, I segued accidentally to thinking about constraints of not having enough water.
So now, why do they hold on to the pee-pee?
Because their own body can just like use that water.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a storage tank.
Right. Exactly. So they'll have like really concentrated urine. Where it isn't have as much water as like
so then
urine.
Could the dewbacks perhaps have some kind of similar storage on them? Maybe
they might. Reptiles, I think, do make a lot more sense in this habitat. But let's see, what else did I want to say? Okay, so another thing that you sometimes see with reptiles is that they and some birds and cartilaginous fish, which would be like sharks and rays, they have what's called a salt gland that they don't sweat through their skin, right? Because they've got scales. So they excrete excess salt through a salt gland, and that helps to conserve water in their bodies.
So if you turn them upside down and shake them,
you could get a nice little seasoning.
Okay.
Yeah, on the rim of your bantha milk.
Why? I don't know why you're salting your bantha milk. That sounds disgusting.
I mean, to preserve it, obviously.
I mean, whatever cocktails are in that cantina, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
You just got a lot of salt.
Yes. So one thing that I think the salt gland is plausible for the dewbacks. Apparently, they're located in the face region. So I think the salt gland is a plausible dewback adaptation.
Okay.
The other thing that we see is that because fat, this is another thing related to heat. Fat apparently is like intensifies heat, and so species that live in the desert will be more likely to store fat in particular parts of their body, like in their tails or in humps, so that their entire body isn't getting extra overheated, just particular areas. So if you look at a picture of a dewback, you'll notice they do have a pretty thick tail,
thick with 2 C's.
Yep. And banthas are really more like overall pretty beefy.
Yeah, they seem
so they're still not really hitting this. Although I think they could have a hump. They might have a hump. Hard to say.
Maybe. I didn't see one.
Yeah. The other thing that you see with and this is more specifically with mammals in desert regions is that apparently they have thick eyebrows and eyelashes.
Oh.
Like Groucho Marx.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yep. I think that's everything I wanted to say about their adaptations.
Oh, lovely.
Like, we just don't really know very much about like what kind of adaptations they might have, but we do know that at minimum they are being cared for by, stormtroopers, and there's some animal husbandry going on because they are domesticated, so their needs are being met
by
even
someone.
In the hot midday sun.
So there's perhaps a future story about a dewback caretaker, maybe something we could get on the horizon.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you. I would like to talk a little bit about Ben Kenobi. I don't know. I was paying attention to him a lot this time when I was watching it. So a couple things. Number one, I found it interesting that so I think Star Wars is a lot about characters experiencing loss. Like there's just a lot of overwhelming loss over and over and over again for these characters. We see Princess Leia lose her planet. She obviously stuffing that grief down pretty far deep because she's got work to do. Luke loses his aunt and uncle. Mm-hmm. He's already lost his father before the story begins. Obi Wan Kenobi, I think what's interesting about him is that he has experienced so much loss. Like he watched his entire, of course we'll see this more. I think
he goes full on hermit.
Well, when we get into the prequels, we'll see what he lost specifically. But I mean, he had a whole society that he was part of. He had a whole way of life. He lost his best friend who had grown up with him as a brother. You know, he saw his best friend become the thing that they were fighting against. Right? He lost Padme. He lost all these people. And but no matter what happened to him, it seems like he's still got this, like, he has this hopefulness about him. I was kind of comparing him to old Luke when we meet him in The Last Jedi. And Obi-Wan Kenobi is a hermit, but he's a hermit with a twinkle in his eye, if you know what I mean. Like,
he's not afraid to jump. He's not afraid to jump right in.
Yes, but also there's a mischievousness about him. He hasn't lost his wonder and zest about life, even though all these horrible things have happened to him. The moment the Force, I assume this is the way to look at it, is that the Force has kind of placed this boy on his doorstep and said, now is your time to take him under your wing. And he's like, yes, let's fucking do this. Like, there's not a moment of hesitation. There's no, I'm not saying that's a good thing. Like, maybe a little bit of self-reflection would be good. But like, he is like ready to go. And even at the end, as he knows that his best friend is about to murder him in front of Luke, his son, right? He like winks at him. It's like the whole thing, he never really lost that hope that things could get better. And I just thought that was really interesting.
Obi-Wan is a charmer.
Yeah, he didn't ever completely, and there's other, he also, I didn't even mention it, but he also lost Qui-Gon, his master, and he in the Clone Wars cartoon series, he loses somebody else who's very important to him. So he's like constantly experiencing this loss, but it never really is able to completely dull his spirit, I think. I also was thinking about how old Luke in The Last Jedi also employs a similar method to get everybody out and to safety, in that he distracts he distracts the First Order the same way that Obi-Wan Kenobi does, distracts Darth Vader so that the others can escape. And then here's my question to you about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay.
So when Luke asks what happened to my father, he straight up lies to him. Like, just straight up lies. I think he's lying.
He says Vader killed your father.
He says Vader killed your father. He says your father, Anakin, was a good pilot and a good friend, and I loved him deeply. And Darth Vader was a pupil of mine who became evil and killed your father.
It is not a lie. It's a tricksy way of telling the truth, I'd say.
And I think that in his own mind, maybe that's how he sees it, but it is a pretty big lie. So do you think, and maybe just based on your answer, I've got my answer here, but do you think that he should have told Luke the truth?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't know Luke yet.
He's been watching him his whole life, though.
Oh, that's true. I don't know. Maybe some things you got to find out for yourself.
I feel like that's valid. But that is a serious fucking lie. Like,
I don't think it's a lie, though. I don't think it's not the whole truth, but it is a truth.
I mean, I understand thinking, okay, maybe he's not ready to know that, like, Space Hitler is his dad. But it's not to protect him. I mean, his name is Skywalker. Like, it's not a secret that he's a Skywalker.
I guess the bigger question is, like, why didn't anybody else mention this?
To Luke?
To Luke. Nobody else is like, hey, bro, gotta tell you something.
I think because they were, well, that makes sense to me. Because they're hiding him from the Emperor. And they're hiding Leia from the Emperor. They don't want the Emperor to find out that the twins survived. That makes sense. Okay. But
then why didn't they change his last name?
I don't know.
Maybe Skywalker's like Smith. It's like a really common last name.
It's Shmi and Anakin. That's it. Those are the only Skywalkers we ever meet.
I mean, the only ones we ever meet. I mean, we have to assume that Uncle Owen is not a Skywalker.
Owen's last name is Lars. Because we'll get there when we get to the prequels, but Shmi was a slave who was bought by Owen Lars's father.
Okay.
He bought her and they married. He bought her to free her. They married.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
my prequel knowledge is a little rusty,
that's
to be
okay.
honest.
So Owen is not a Skywalker.
Wait, so where did the word is Shmi Skywalker?
Shmi is Anakin's mother.
Right. But I mean, like, was her last name Skywalker?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, we have a pretty small sample size here. There could be, like, a whole planet of, like, lots and lots of Skywalkers.
But I feel like the moment Vader knows Luke exists, he's like, that's my son. Like, that is my son.
His force has got to be pretty rusty if he can't sense that.
Well, I think that he didn't know that they existed. He thought they were dead. Or he didn't, first of all, he didn't know there were two babies. He thought there was one. Mm-hmm. And he thinks that baby is dead because...
So, like, does anybody else in the whole Rebel Alliance know that Vader is Luke's father?
I think the only people that know about Luke and that Luke and Leia even existed
were Leia's father, Leia's adopted father.
Bail Organa and his wife. I assume he told his wife.
Well, I assume he can't just be like, no, you had this baby.
Right. Bail Organa and his wife, Yoda and Obi Wan Kenobi and Owen Lars. That's it. Like the Lars, Owen and Aunt Beru. That's just those 5 people, I think, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So I get that they were hiding him, but then
maybe they should have called him Luke Lars.
Ooh, that's terrible.
I know, but I'm just saying,
Leia, I mean, Bail changes Leia's name.
I mean, that's a sensible decision.
It is.
If you're trying to hide your child from Space Hitler, then I think changing the last name would be a good idea.
In Space Hitler's mom's last known residence.
Right. Yeah. They didn't even change the address.
No. They didn't change the mailbox. They didn't forward the mail. Nothing.
They're still getting catalogs.
From Anakin's catalogs are still arriving.
Right, as space pod racer catalogs.
Exactly. I've been saving these for you, Dad.
You just bring them by in a big pile.
But the thing is,
his pod racer's extended warranty.
But the thing is, most people don't know that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader.
Right.
Only a few people even know that. So Anakin Skywalker is a war hero who was killed or disappeared or something during the Great Purge, as they call it, when they purged all the Jedi. So most people think Anakin Skywalker died a hero. They don't realize that he's Darth Vader. So the name Skywalker would not be a name that people would think of as a bad thing.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, I just feel personally that it's pretty shitty. I'm just going to say it. I think it's pretty shitty that Obi Wan doesn't tell him. It seems like that would be a good time to explain it, because now he has to find out from Darth Vader.
I think that, I don't know, it seems reasonable to me. It's really not his business.
It's not his business to tell Luke that his father is Darth Vader? Whose business is it?
It's obviously business between Vader and Luke.
I don't know, man. I feel like if they want Luke to be prepared to face what he has to face, I feel like he needs to know these things. I understand why they wouldn't tell Leia, because, she stays more hidden.
I don't see what the difference is.
Because, Leia doesn't even find out that her and Luke are brothers until Yoda tells Luke.
There is another.
Yeah, Leia stays hidden. Luke is the one out in the open. Luke is the one who's susceptible to Darth Vader coming in and trying to bring him to the dark side. He's the one who will be tempted, who could be manipulated by the Emperor. And without knowing his family history, I feel like that puts him at a disadvantage. That's all I'm saying.
I don't see why you would be bothered by Obi-Wan not telling Luke that Vader was his father, but not bothered by the Organas hiding this from Leia.
They actually Bail was killed before he could tell her. He actually did record this is again in Bloodline. There's a little box, a little jewelry box filled with a bunch of stuff for Leia that Bail left for her on a planet that is like where their relatives are. It's not on Alderaan, so it didn't get destroyed.
Right.
In there is a recording of Bail telling her, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to tell you, but I have to tell you the truth about your father. And so
he left it in a voice message.
He left it in a voicemail.
That seems like
that's more than Obi-Wan did. Like, Obi-Wan Kenobi had so many opportunities. They couldn't have force Skyped about this. I'm just saying, like, you know, like he couldn't have said something.
I'm just saying, like,
Bail
literally phoned it in. So
okay, that's fair. But at least he tried.
She grew up with him like her whole life.
That makes sense to me though, because they're hiding her. They're hiding her. Also, Leia, like Luke is hidden on a farm planet. He's a hick on a farm planet. Nobody knows who he is. Leia grew up in politics from the time she was a child. She's a very public figure.
Sure.
She's the princess of Alderaan.
Yep.
Like, if anyone knew that she was Darth Vader's daughter, that would be very dangerous for her. Whereas Luke isn't in danger until he becomes part of the rebellion. When he becomes part of the rebellion,
Leia
it's dangerous.
is literally already part of the rebellion, though.
Right, but she has a better cover story. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but she is equally susceptible to Darth Vader. She could be equally as susceptible to him as.
But he doesn't figure
Luke
it out because they changed her fucking name. If they had changed Luke's name, I think he would have been better hidden. I'm just saying, Leia is still, her identity remains secret, whereas once Luke blows up the Death Star, like he becomes famous, everyone knows who he is. And also Vader literally sensed his Force abilities, you know, when they were blowing up the Death Star. So now
meanwhile,
Luke
he has like a face-to-face conversation with Leia and doesn't sense shit.
Right, because I think it's because he doesn't expect it. You would think he would sense something in her, at least during the torture, but I guess denial. Am I right?
Yeah. Mm.
Okay. I could go on and on and on about this movie, but I think we got to wrap it up. So before we go, one thing I would like to know from you. I'd like to know you, but also one thing I'd like to know from you is, what is your favorite scene from this movie? It's an easy one for me.
Oh, is it? You know, I love I've always loved the trash compactor scene.
That's my favorite scene too.
Yeah,
I just want you to. I have that written down as my favorite scene. It's the trash compactor. Is my favorite scene.
I love that, especially like the bumblingness of this droid who's like, arguably the droids are supposed to be like perfect, right? Because they're robots.
But they're not. They're bumbling clowns. Yeah.
C-3PO just like forgets to turn his palm on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they're all in there. They're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why aren't you picking up? Stop the compactor.
I love Chewie gets freaked out. I love that. I think for me, the movie really takes off when you get the three of those characters together and Chewbacca.
Right.
When you get the team together,
because prior to that,
the movie really takes off for me, which is I think like an hour and 15 minutes into the movie. But
I think it is surprisingly close to the. I think prior to that, they are the three main characters and the two droids are, you know, individuals who have been put on a course together.
Yes.
They are like the banthas licking the dew off each other's backs out of convenience because they're stuck in the office together.
Well, but
after that trash compactor scene, they're like a little unit.
They're BFFs. Grumpy about it, but
I mean, and obviously the best line out of the entire movie that cracks me up every single time is Han Solo on the comm. We're fine here. Everything's fine. How are you?
It's like when it's like when it gets too quiet out there, and I'm asking my kids, like, what's going on out there? And they're like, we're fine. We're all fine here.
Everything's fine. What are you doing?
Honestly, everything from the rescue all the way through the trash compactor is my favorite part. I love that. And again, like little moments where you see Han Solo like trying to help Princess Leia not get crushed by the trash compactor. You
Mhm.
see a little tenderness there. I love Luke getting sucked under the water by the creature and everybody getting really concerned about it. You can see this bond forming. I love when Leia's immediately like, let's fucking do something about this. She's like trying to brace it so that they don't get squished. Han Solo's making jokes about it. He's like, I think he says something like, one thing's for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner. And I'm
Yep.
like, it's just gold. The whole thing is gold.
Actually, I heard that and I thought, like, is that the first dad joke that they make in the movie?
It is such a dad joke, but I can't get enough of it. I also love that. I love the part where Luke is like screaming and like they shut off the trash compactor and Luke and they all start cheering and like C-3PO immediately internalizes his own failure and is like, listen to them, they're all dying. It's my fault.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just
There's like nothing but gold there.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's easily, I think, the best scene in the movie for me.
Yeah.
All from the rescue up through the trash compactor is definitely my favorite part. Wow, that's cool that we like the same thing. All right, so up next, we'll be watching The Empire Strikes Back.
Yep.
When was the last time you saw this movie?
Maybe in the last year, because
Okay.
my youngest daughter likes Star Wars. She's 3.5, and she gets excited about Star Wars.
I know. Amelia is my buddy.
Yeah,
her and Lucas are my Star Wars buddies.
My older daughter could not give a crap about Star Wars, and I tried to get her young watching it. She just wasn't into it.
You know, it might change because Charlotte wasn't into Star Wars, but then later in life, you know, she appreciated it a lot more, and also watches the Clone Wars with me and the Bad Batch now.
So I watched the first half of it this afternoon, and then the second half after I picked up Evelyn from camp, my older daughter.
Yeah.
And I got home and I said, well, I need to finish watching Star Wars, but it's already halfway through. And she basically was like, meh, don't care, don't give a crap.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Don't even need to rewind it. Don't care what happens. Not going to watch it with you, even though I'm in the same room.
Well,
she's just not into it. You know what?
Maybe.
But that's okay.
Sure.
She can be into other things.
Sure.
And I have my one nerd daughter who can watch it with me.
So you remember it pretty good then, in terms of what happens in Empire, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I got to do a whole nother round of research.
Oh no, I just mean like, you know, I was going to ask you what you remember about it, but there's no point because you just watched it recently.
Yeah, I watched it recently. I mean, like, of course, like all the Hoth scenes are
the
classic,
the romance, the bickering, the training,
the classic romantic trope of enemies to friends,
enemies to friends. To frenemies, to lovers, yes.
Yeah.
Empire, good solid A+ Star Wars. Looking forward to watching it again.
Looking forward. I mean, there's a lot to talk, you know, as much as there was to talk about with the animals and stuff in Tatooine, like, I feel like we've got the next 3 cities, the next 3 planets coming up. We have Hoth, Dagobah, and Bespin.
Yeah, there's a whole lot.
There's a lot
they really
more.
Up
Whereas,
their game. Like, we didn't really talk about this, but I also love how this movie is so janky. Like, everything looks so homemade and janky. Like, you can literally see the paint, the layers of paint on Darth Vader's like uniform, on his helmet and shit. But it really, like, they had a little bit more money the second time around, clearly, and so they definitely expanded the world and some of the creatures and stuff.
I'm looking forward to maybe some of Lando's capes.
Oh, Lando. Adore him so much.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm excited about that. One last plug for Lost Stars. It's a good book. What I didn't get to was that what you see in Lost Stars is that you have one character, they both start out in the academy together. One character ends up leaving the Empire after the Death Star because he's just shattered by the idea of all these people dying, because you get to know the people in the academy, and so when the Death Star blows up, it means something that all those people are dead now. There are characters you met that are on the Death Star that die as a result of the Death Star blowing up, and so you have some characters who choose to stay with the Empire and actually become more radicalized, including someone from Alderaan whose planet blows up and yet becomes more radicalized and more dedicated to the Empire. And then you have someone else who ends up joining the rebellion. Anyway, it's really interesting to see people who aren't people outside of our group process big things like Alderaan blowing up or the Death Star blowing up. Anyway, so Lost Stars, it's a great book. I recommend anyone check it out who hasn't read it. Okay, well, that's yes, you were going to say something. sounded
I was
like.
just going to say one last shout out to all those extinct Pleistocene megafauna.
Let's shout them out.
Gone but not forgotten.
Not forgotten at all. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this, not our first episode, but really the first sort of official episode of this format. If you are a mega nerd like we are, hope you enjoyed nerding out with us today. We will be talking next about The Empire Strikes Back. We also have some social medias now, so you can follow us on those things. Currently, this podcast is available on our website, tauntauns.podcast.com. I am, of course, it will be up on Stitcher and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all those things. I'm just need to get off my ass and do all that. But in the meantime, you can find us on Facebook. We have a page, Tea and Tauntauns, and we're on Twitter at Tea and Tauntauns, and we're on Instagram at Tea and Tauntauns Podcast. So yeah,
I hope you'll join us with a cuppa.
Please join us for a cuppa clink, and we'll see you next time.